So that footage captured the extremely elusive frilled shark, and it proved that ancient maritime mythology was actually spot on. I mean, for centuries, experienced seafarers were accurately describing this exact animal.
Picture this. It's January 2007. A fisherman working just off the coast near Awashima Marine Park in Japan looks down into the shallow water and spots, well, something he's never quite seen before. Think of almost any modern shark, right? The mouth is usually tucked on the underside of its snout. That's a ventral position, perfectly designed for an upward sweeping bite.
For centuries, medieval European maritime records and sailor accounts from the Age of Exploration were absolutely packed with terrifying tales of sea serpents. For the longest time, we just dismissed these as hallucinations or tall tales.
Physical adaptations are incredible for sure, but now we're looking at marine animals with advanced intelligence and entirely unique nervous systems. Let's talk about the octopus. When we think of a brain, we usually think of a central processor in the head.
Taking intelligence even further, let's look at the orca. Wide aerial views of orcapods reveal something truly astounding. Their real biological superpower isn't just a physical trait, it's culture. For our final reveal, we are plunging straight back down into the absolute deepest, darkest trenches of the ocean to face a force that destroys human engineering, crushing immense physical pressure.
Sailors from ancient Greece right through the Age of Exploration were logging encounters with deep ocean serpentine creatures that had frilled collars, inward curving teeth, and snake-like movements. These were seasoned professionals writing in their logs.
It's this long cylindrical creature, and it's moving in these smooth S-curve undulations, honestly looking exactly like a sea serpent. But the frilled shark totally breaks that rule. Its mouth is terminal, meaning it's positioned right at the very front tip of its snout, kind of like a barracuda.
But the match here is undeniable. When you look at those old, detailed engravings and illuminated manuscripts next to the actual anatomy of the frilled shark, it's wild. Sailors described beasts with ruffled collars, serpentine S-curve movements, and forward-facing mouth.
But a massive portion of an octopus's neurons aren't in its head at all. They're heavily distributed throughout its flexible arms and peripheral nervous system. This means when an octopus moves through a rocky crevice, its arms can independently explore cracks, manipulate shells, and process complex tactile information locally.
Different orca populations have developed highly specialized cooperative hunting traditions, like intentionally creating coordinated waves to knock seals right off ice floes. These techniques aren't purely instinctual. Down at these depths, the weight of the water above is just unimaginable, yet life absolutely thrives here. How? Deep-sea organisms don't have thick metal hulls. Instead, they rely on highly specialized biochemical and structural adaptations.
Yet for hundreds of years, science basically dismissed their accounts as tall tales. It wasn't officially described from dead specimens until 1884, and astonishingly, it took all the way until that morning in 2007 for humans to finally film one alive.
He calls the marine park staff, and they managed to capture the very first live video footage of this unidentifiable snake-like animal. And let me tell you, it was a moment that sent absolute shockwaves through the scientific community. And that completely changes its hunting mechanics, engineering it for a forward-lunging ambush attack instead of your standard shark bite.
These legends of maritime history weren't just pure invention. They were eyewitness, early scientific observations of an animal that formal science wouldn't even recognize until the 19th century.
The central brain gives a general command, but the arms essentially think for themselves to execute the physical task. It's just a wildly alien form of intelligence.
Their learned behaviors pass socially from older generations down to the younger ones. This cultural network is without a doubt one of their most impressive and dominant survival advantages in the ocean. They possess unique cellular and molecular strategies that keep their proteins from collapsing and their cell membranes fluid and functioning. Under pressure conditions that would instantly crush human lungs and to scramble our biology, these animals casually drift by, perfectly adapted to their extreme reality.
Which brings us to a truly staggering number, 95%. That massive percentage represents the portion of our own planet's ocean floor that remains completely and utterly unexplored by humans today.
And this brings us to a statistical probability that makes even the most conservative marine scientists incredibly uncomfortable. 95%. 95% of our ocean remains entirely unexplored by human beings.
300. That's the sheer volume of teeth packed inside the frilled shark's jaw. And we aren't talking about standard teeth here. Every single one of those 300 teeth is a three-pronged, trident-shaped nightmare.
All 3 points on every tooth curve inward toward the throat, and they're arranged across 25 continuous rows. It creates this massive, terrifying surface area. When you step back and connect the incredible biological solutions we've covered today, from bioelectricity all the way to pressure adaptation, these abilities honestly seem like magic or science fiction. But remember the core takeaway here. None of this requires magic. Every single one of these spectacular traits is the direct result of natural selection acting across enormous, almost unfathomable spans of evolutionary time. The ocean is just a massive laboratory, and given enough millions of years, biological necessity engineers solutions that appear absolutely impossible to the human eye.
80 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That is exactly how many years this exact lineage has been swimming in our oceans. When you dig into the fossil record, this creature first shows up about 80 million years ago in the late Cretaceous period. To put that into perspective, we're talking about a time when the T-Rex was at its absolute peak on land. And if you take an 80-million-year-old fossilized specimen and put it right next to a modern frilled shark skeleton, there's zero difference. They are structurally identical. Evolution just looked at this thing and found no improvements to make.